Rock versus Roman Reigns, WrestleMania 40, night 2, period. I don't know how in the last week or so this whole narrative has changed since The Rock returned on Monday Night Raw and he gave his little head of the table reservation talk at the end of Monday Night Raw, or at the end of his segment with Jinder Mahal, right? It was cool to see him, right? Because he's actually, unlike last year, it's WrestleMania season and he was in a WWE ring. It's WrestleMania season and he mentioned Roman Reigns, right? And this is not, he didn't have to technically be into the ring, because this is something we've been talking about him without him being around. We've been talking about this now for years. Rock and Roman at WrestleMania 39. Rock and Roman at WrestleMania 40. Rock and Roman maybe at WrestleMania 38. That's how long this has been going on, right? But all of a sudden, now that he's back and now that people feel like this is more of a possibility, all of a sudden people are saying, well, maybe Rock and Roman at Elimination Chamber in Australia instead, because Cody's got a story to finish. And I mean, I think the plan ever since day one of this title reign, maybe not since day one of this title reign, but when this title reign essentially eclipsed the first WrestleMania, when it approached the 1 year mark, right? And you saw that this was a different Roman Reigns. I think at that point, it was Rock and Roman at WrestleMania, and whatever WrestleMania it was going to be, whenever we finally got there, right? We were talking about it last year. We're talking about it now again this year. Why has this plan deviated amongst a lot of fans? I see votes online. I see very reputable people talking about it and saying Rock, Roman at Elimination Chamber. And why has this plan for so many fans kind of deviated? What do you make of this?
So what I'm making of it is I'm reading between the tea leaves, and it sounds like the tourism folks in Australia, in the country of Australia, have put in a request with WWE to get him on the show if possible. So I think that's where it really comes down to. I feel like obviously any country is going to want The Rock. I mean, The Rock is box office. He's one of the most famous and recognizable faces, not only in wrestling, but in the entire planet. Everybody knows who The Rock is. Like, even people that don't watch wrestling, they're like, oh yeah, that Rock guy. Like, they all know who he is. So I think that's what it comes down to. Now, isn't this is what I was going to say. We were talking in the pre-show. This is where wrestling is right now, where we're upset that he could be at Elimination Chamber versus WrestleMania. That's come a long way, because that tells you how great the business is right now, because you're like, we don't really need The Rock at WrestleMania per se, because, hey, we got Cody Rhodes.
And I agree with you. We don't need The Rock at WrestleMania. We didn't have him last year, and WrestleMania was just fine. We don't need The Rock at any WrestleMania. We don't need Hulk Hogan at any WrestleMania. We don't need John Cena now, luckily. And I will say that has come a long way. The Rock obviously has been out of WWE for the most part for a while. The last time he had a scheduled match, I know he had a match, quote-unquote, at WrestleMania 32, which is, again, about 10 years ago. But last time he had a scheduled match at WrestleMania was Rock, Cena, 2 at MetLife Stadium at WrestleMania 29, which is now going on 11 years ago. So I get that, right? We don't really need him there. And now I think it's pretty cool that we don't need John Cena there. That's a new one to say, because we have had John Cena at a lot of WrestleManias, right? Even though, John Cena's been kind of moving along. And same with The Undertaker. The Undertaker, granted, he has been asked to perform at a lot of WrestleManias. Triple H has performed at a lot of WrestleManias. So we've had those kind of people still kicking around. Well, The Rock hasn't been, for the most part. We even seen Stone Cold 2 years ago at WrestleMania. But now we're at a point where none of those guys, Undertaker, Stone Cold, Triple H, they can all essentially take a backseat and not be involved in WrestleMania. And I think the card has enough people. My complaint isn't that we don't need The Rock at WrestleMania, because we don't need The Rock. If The Rock's on a WrestleMania and it's Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns, obviously, I don't necessarily like rematches, but, it is what it is. I imagine it'll be fine. What I don't want to see is The Rock available to be at WrestleMania and The Rock facing Roman Reigns in a wrestling ring during WrestleMania season and it not being at WrestleMania. I don't think people understand, and I've gotten into arguments with people on social media and Twitter and other things like that. First off, if your opinion of this is that Roman and Cody's going to be a better match, you're right. It probably is going to be a quote-unquote better match.
Cool.
And for those fans, I hope that you got your sleep. I hope you stayed up till 5 o'clock in the morning, because Wrestle Kingdom 18, it just happened earlier today in America time. So I hope you got to watch it, because if you're looking for the best wrestling match on the planet, you shouldn't be looking to WrestleMania. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be watching Wrestle Kingdom. That's where your Dave Meltzer 6-star matches are going to be. So if you think that Cody and Roman's going to be a better match, yeah, so Kenny Omega and Okada is going to be a better match as well. But that's not headlining WrestleMania. WrestleMania to me, and essentially what it's founded on, it's not even like people say things have gone away from what they were. Football is not like it used to be. The Super Bowl is now about entertainment more than the game. WrestleMania was always about entertainment. That's literally the invention of this event. Cyndi Lauper, Muhammad Ali, these people were at WrestleMania 1 for that reason. I told somebody on social media, the truth is the truth. Kenny Omega has had 0 WrestleMania matches. Snooki has had 1. Okay, so believe me, like this is I said it before. It's a line that it's not my own.
Wait, but let me ask you this then. So are you opposed to a possibility of a triple threat match to obviously protect The Rock because he's obviously not an active
I'm opposed to The Rock and Roman Reigns getting in the same ring and the bell ringing and it not being the main event of WrestleMania. That's what I'm opposed to. I mean, I would prefer, right, that it is a non-title match, right? Because obviously title matches give things away when people are part-timers, right? But either way, however you have to slice it, right? I remember going back to January of 2021 or 2022, right? Just after 2022, right? SoFi Stadium, the Super Bowl. I was at a Super Bowl party. WrestleMania was still 16 months or something away from being at SoFi Stadium. And I was at the Super Bowl party, and I remember telling people there when The Rock came out and started it out with his, welcome to the Super Bowl, whatever nonsense. And I remember saying, like, next year, not this year, because even WrestleMania in Dallas wasn't made set, but I was just like, next year, because they're going to need a while to build this, because this is so big. I was like, next year, that guy is going to be right there at the 50-yard line wrestling Roman Reigns in the main event of WrestleMania in Los Angeles. They're like, how do you know that already? I'm like, it's such a big match that, like, it's being built up for so long. It's like Freddie versus Jason. It came out in 2003, but I was like, when the internet was in its infancy in 1996, I was on Twitter or I was on message boards being like, is this movie going to get made yet? Like, when are these studios going to come together? It's one of those things that fans kind of have been looking forward to. So before WrestleMania 38 ever took off, I knew that Rock and Roman was going to be the main event of WrestleMania, Los Angeles, SoFi Stadium, 18 months away or however long away. Like, it was so big, but I knew that it was going to happen because if it does happen, it's got to happen there. And now that it didn't happen there and that we waited even another year, now it's WrestleMania 40, not as big a stage, but a bigger event because of the anniversary of, the celebration of 40 years of WrestleMania, right? I don't think that
plus wrestling's hot right now. Plus wrestling's hot.
I don't think that plan has essentially changed, right? Like, I don't like it, it would essentially be like Rock and Cena. They build that up, a once in a lifetime match, and then they get all the way to WrestleMania, but then they go, no, you know what? Let's have it at Elimination Chamber instead. Like, no, this. I'm actually
but here, dude,
that this
think
match
of it this
was
way.
announced at last year's WrestleMania, and they haven't been giving it a full year build. I mean, that's how big of a match.
Here's the thing, though. They're doing the same thing in Saudi Arabia. They're putting all these big matches together in Saudi Arabia for all those shows. So, I mean, I think the Australian folks are like, well, hey, if they're paying up for that stuff, why don't we pay the big dollars for that? So, like, that to me, I don't like. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens at Elimination Chamber.
And here's the thing. I'm fine with Rock being an Elimination Chamber, and I get it. It's at a stadium, right? That's great, and I hope it's a great show, right? To be honest with you, here's some things, though, right? WWE, the way, and as we mentioned, as hot of a product as it is right now, WWE doesn't have to bring on a quote-unquote Saudi Arabia-style show, right? WWE's coming to a country that it rarely comes to. It's coming for a big-time pay-per-view event, right? I think if you just put on what you were going to put on with maybe a part-timer or a sprinkle here and there of something extra, you should be able to sell. I mean, Money in the Bank, right? It was in London, right? They sold that place out like crazy. Tickets were insane, higher than WrestleMania tickets to get in Money in the Bank. There was not ever a hotter ticket because WWE doesn't come to London that often, right? Money in the Bank, a pretty good show, right? But it wasn't WrestleMania. It wasn't even SummerSlam, right? It was what Money in the Bank would have been if it took place essentially in Hartford, Connecticut, right? I know WWE puts it as one of their bigger shows, and it was a bigger show, but it wasn't WrestleMania. It wasn't Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns once in a lifetime.
Do you have to still, like, if they do an Elimination Chamber in Australia, like, and the title, like you said, the title doesn't need to be on the line. So, like, can they just do the stipulation the winner is the head of the table? Like, can't they just do something like that and be fine?
You know, I think wherever they do it, I don't need the title on the line. In fact, and that's the reason I've mentioned that it's better as a non-title match. It's pretty obvious. It's the house show scenario, right? Yeah. You're giving your hand away. If The Rock literally says, "I start shooting this movie on May the 1st," well, then then we know the result. What was nice about Rock and Cena in Miami at WrestleMania 28 is that Rock won the match, and then Rock went away to do what The Rock does. But because Rock wasn't going away from the match with any championship belts or props in his hands that he has to now defend at house shows, he could win that match, right? Snooki can win her match at WrestleMania if it's a non-title match, and she can literally pretend like she was never there and disappear, right? But if it's a championship match and it has future storyline implications, that's why titles don't change hands because they would have to explain them on future shows of what happened.
That's part of it. And here's the thing though, with the whole Rock and Roman Reigns situation, I think all they have to do, and I think it's a strong enough storyline to build, obviously with the family ties, but like I think if you just go head of the table, you know, whoever the winner is, no title on the line, you get title of head of the table. That's good. And like you said, The Rock can go start filming other movies. Like he's you know, obviously he's a megastar. He's a very busy guy. He's doing a ton of different movies, shows, whatnot. So I think that's the way they do it. And then what happens from there is then, you know, I still think no matter what happens, if it's Roman versus Rock, Roman's going to win. I'm already putting it out there right now. Roman's winning regardless. Because if in this scenario where he wrestles The Rock at Elimination Chamber, we're just kind of speculating, putting that out there. If he, why would they have him lose and then he goes and faces Cody Rhodes?
I imagine everything. Yeah. And so that's another way that it's kind of tipping your hand. If the championship's on the line, it's kind of tipping your hand. It's doing that stuff. Listen, there's lots of ways that you can do this, but whatever the way is, at the end of the day, in my eyes, Rock and Roman Reigns has to be at WrestleMania. I understand that Elimination Chamber is in a stadium and it's a bigger stadium than Lincoln Financial in Philadelphia. I get that. That's cool and all. Okay. And I get it, and not just the fact that it's going to be on at 5:00 in the morning, right? And they're not going to get the same social media engagement. It's just literally, I said this before, WrestleMania 20 was at Madison Square Garden. It was inside of an arena that fit 20,000 people. And since then, SummerSlams have beaten that attendance. Money in the Banks have beaten that attendance. Lots of things have beaten that attendance, right? Because inside an arena, 20,000 people is the max, right?
What do you do with Cody? Regardless of all that, what do you do with Cody at that point?
I don't. Here's my situation. Here's what you do with Cody. Here's what I think the best situation is. If you were to say, because in my eyes, I'm Rock versus Roman. I don't care how you get there. Sorry, Cody. Sorry, CM Punk. Sorry, whoever. I'm Rock, Roman, one-on-one at WrestleMania. Like, I just don't see anything else being a scenario. But if you're gonna have to say, what do you do with Cody? What I'll say to that is Cody and Roman at Elimination Chamber for the belt. All right. And then he can get the belt at Elimination Chamber and go into WrestleMania, and it can be him versus Punk. It can be him versus Orton. I
can't do that. That to me, it doesn't work. Like, I feel like the only way they can make this work and do it right, especially with the whole Cody situation, is
if you're going to say right, because if it's Rock and Roman and it's not in the main event of WrestleMania, the biggest WrestleMania main event of all time in my eyes, outside of Hogan and Andre, I don't think there is a way to make it right.
Well, here's the thing, and that's a fair point. Sure, it's an entertainment thing, and obviously The Rock is a big name. But like for all of us that are actual like wrestling fans, like we actually enjoy the product from week to week. To me, Cody's earned it at this point. Like, I don't like nothing against The Rock. Like, I have a lot of love for Rock. You and I both grew up watching The Rock, so like we've been fans of The Rock for as long as I can remember. But the thing is, and I guess he can do that because it's The Rock and he's one of the most famous people on the planet. But I just don't like the fact that it's possible that Cody gets pushed off again. Because here's my thoughts. Here's what's going to happen. And maybe this is the scenario that works out for you. I'm just going to go off of your scenario where it's Rock and Roman night 2 of WrestleMania. Here's what happens on night 1 of WrestleMania. CM Punk and Seth Rollins, for the championship. So you already had your 2 main events right there. Done. You're butting that up. But then the odd man out is Cody Rhodes. Like, to me, like, that doesn't fly for me. Like,
My
I
thing
just
with
don't
Cody
like it.
Rhodes is like, listen, I get it. He's quote unquote earned it, right? But I just
Yeah.
don't understand. He joined back with WWE in 2022 at WrestleMania 38. Okay. He's been back in the fold for less than 2 years now, right? I don't foresee why, great. He's back. We all like him. He's a pretty good star. He went from a low to mid Carter at best to the main event scene on his return. He deserved that because of what he did in the Indies and stuff like that. But you don't come back. Like, listen, if Dolph Ziggler, who we'll talk about a little bit later, who showed up in New Japan Wrestling, right? If he does great in New Japan, he takes on Kenny Omega and Okada and Will Ospreay and does all of that stuff, and he makes himself a huge name in the Indies. Then he comes back to WWE and tries to go after the WWE Championship. I don't think if you have the ability to put on Austin versus Rock for your main event, you forego that because Dolph Ziggler's new in town. I heard earlier today on Busted Open Radio, Dave LaGreca, Tommy Dreamer, they were talking about this match, and one thing they were talking about is The Rock being Buzz Lightyear in the Toy Story. He's the new toy. He's the new flash in the pan. But I think that's not true. I think Cody Rhodes is the new thing because before Cody Rhodes came back to WWE, Rock and Roman was the match. Rock and Roman, like I said, was going to main event WrestleMania 39 in Los Angeles before we ever knew Cody was coming back to WWE. So this match is so far in the past and so built up. It's literally like Rock and Cena had that 1 year build. And just because CM Punk had a pretty good 2012 doesn't mean you deviate
So let me ask
from
you this
that
then.
4 year plan because Cody's on a hot streak.
So then answer this then. So John Cena, he doesn't like. So he shows up at random pay-per-views and it's not WrestleMania. He's done that time and time again. Yes, is he not at the level of The Rock when it comes to Hollywood and this and that? Yes, but is he also a megastar where people that are not normal wrestling fans know who he is? Yes, they have that same aura around them that they are megastars in their own right. So for me, like, John Cena does all of these different pay-per-views and random shows and SmackDowns and this and that, and it's not a big deal. But when The Rock does it, like, oh, he has to be at
This isn't just
WrestleMania. I don't
because
get
The Rock is, and this isn't also because of The Rock specifically who he is. Like, because again, we saw John Cena open the show at WrestleMania last year, right? This isn't just, The Rock wants to be involved. He all of a sudden should be in the main event. That's not what I'm saying here. This is a specific thing. If Rock and Roman already happened and the head of the table thing already happened, the thing we've been talking about for years was gone, and it was just Rock coming back to make an appearance, then yeah, make him on night one do like what Stone Cold did with Kevin Owens, right? He doesn't necessarily be in a quote unquote, big. This isn't just The Rock. This isn't like anybody. This isn't The Rock. This isn't even if Kenny Omega showed up at the Royal Rumble or any of that kind of stuff. This is a specific match. This is The Rock, but also with a specific match. Like I said, Stone Cold, if he never faced Goldberg, that's another dream match we've always thought about. Stone Cold and Goldberg, that goes back to the 90s. They had the same look. They were the hottest things in 1998, right? And if all of a sudden we realized that there was a possibility to do that match, and all of a sudden in 2016, somebody started hinting at it, and then 2017 and 18 and 19, it started to build up, and then all of a sudden Goldberg made his return, and Stone Cold was ready to wrestle, and all of a sudden you had not just Stone Cold and Goldberg, because we've had them before, but you had this specific scenario of Stone Cold.
Let's be honest. I'm just
going
to
say, well, Cody Rhodes he needs to finish his story.
I'm going to put holes in that because obviously Stone Cold has neck problems, and we know how unsafe Goldberg is as a competitor. I don't think that'll ever happen, to be honest with you. But that's neither here nor there. But here's my my proposal then. So to make everybody happy, yourself and myself, because obviously I'm on the Cody Rhodes side of it, you're on the Rock side of it. Then just do the damn triple threat match at WrestleMania as the main event, and then you get everybody, and you're satisfying all the things.
But you're not satisfying me because I'm not interested in because as I just said, I'm not interested in The Rock at WrestleMania. I'm not interested just him being there and being a part of something. If that is the case, then just don't even have him at all. Just have Cody and Roman. I'm fine with The Rock.
But here's what you're fighting for, though.
I'm just saying Rock versus Roman one-on-one should only happen at WrestleMania. If it happens, it should happen in the main event of WrestleMania. If it happens at Elimination Chamber instead, that's a tragedy. If you don't want it to happen at all, that's fine. If you want Rock just to be the special guest referee, that's fine.
But if you do a triple threat, there's so many storylines involved because Cody's trying to finish his story. The Rock is saying, "Nope, I'm gonna be the head of the table," and then Roman's trying to supplant his legacy as the greatest champion of all time. There's 3 different storylines involved, so there's a lot of stories to be told in that match. So and the other thing is too, The Rock, yes, The Rock is in great shape. Obviously, he's one of the freakiest nature people on planet Earth. But at the end of the day, how long can he go in a wrestling ring without training regularly in a wrestling ring? You can be in physically great shape, but ring stamina versus
Who
like
says he
regular
hasn't
stamina.
been training? He said he's mentioned before that he wouldn't go in without the proper training.
But
and,
that's the thing,
that's
though.
probably why he wasn't involved last year.
But what is he? He's got to be 50 now, just about. Like I think he's 50, isn't he? He's close to. I know he's up there now. He's been around a long time. So for me, it's like, okay, you're not. You very rarely show up in wrestling. You're a movie star. Yes, you're in great shape. You're a freak of nature. But to me, like a triple threat match would be smart because it protects The Rock.
A triple threat match is great. I would love to see a triple threat match at WrestleMania 41 because I'm not a big fan of rematches. I don't want to see the same thing over again. So great, WrestleMania 41 when they try to retread it, be a triple threat match. That's where WWE failed with John Cena and The Rock. John Cena and The Rock should have been John Cena, Rock, and CM Punk in a triple threat match at WrestleMania 29 after they had once in a lifetime at 28.
If you don't like that triple threat, then do you say, all right, Cody, you're going to wrestle Seth Rollins and CM Punk instead?
I'm gonna tell Cody Rhodes, I'm gonna say, I don't know what we're gonna do, but we have The Rock and Roman Reigns. We've been literally talking about this match. Vince McMahon, before he was out of the company, before this was even owned by another company like TKO Endeavor, long ago when the Roman Reigns title reign essentially began during the pandemic, this kind of thing has been brewing, and we've been just waiting for the opportunity. There's been different things. The Rock didn't agree on the payment, or Rock didn't agree on the outcome, or wasn't in ring shape, or what have you. But we've literally been waiting for this. This has been a box we've been wanting to open. We just haven't been able to do it. So it's not like, again, this is coming out of nowhere. It's not like The Rock just showed up and all of a sudden we got to find room for him. The Rock, this match has literally been on the shelf. This specific match has been on the shelf. And they're like, we want this to main event all WrestleMania. Whenever this can happen, this is the main event of a WrestleMania whatever year.
Here's the thing, though. The Rock's schedule is way different than anybody else's on planet Earth. Like, he doesn't have a ton of time because he's always filming, he's always working in non-WWE capacity. So for me, it's a thing where, you just got to make it fit with his schedule. So maybe maybe I don't know what the report is. I don't have The Rock's schedule in front of me. I don't know what is. I don't know what is.
The Rock said he controls his schedule to a part, and he said on ESPN this past fall, right before he made the SmackDown appearance, he said that if the match could happen or can happen, he can find a way, to make it happen. He said that they talked about the way that was going to happen last year, and things just didn't necessarily work out.
But here's the thing. But you know what? He did. I didn't see the interview. I haven't seen it in a while. I should say I did see the interview, but I just didn't see it. I haven't seen it since it originally aired. But did he say anything about oh, hey, we're definitely going to do it at WrestleMania? If anything, I don't know if he did. I don't think he did, if I remember. So for me, him saying, "Hey, let's make it happen."
He didn't maybe necessarily say WrestleMania, right? He did during the interview. He did say WrestleMania is going to be in Philadelphia, and I think then Pat McAfee said, "What about you and Roman?" And he said, was that supposed to happen? And he did say that was supposed to happen in Los Angeles. That was supposed to be the main event of WrestleMania in LA, and that they met, 6 months prior, and whatever happened to be. Like I said, the money situation, I don't remember exactly what he said. He said just things didn't necessarily transpire. They didn't come to an agreement. Vince and Bruce Pritchard.
What if Australia's paying a bunch of money to make it happen? Then
go to Australia and be in a triple threat tag team match, special guest referee, do whatever.
I don't think that's what they're going to do.
I'm fine. Listen, I'm fine with Saudi Arabia having The Undertaker and Goldberg and this, that, and the other thing. I'm just not fine with The Undertaker's streak, WrestleMania streak coming to the end in Saudi Arabia at 4 o'clock in the morning or something like that. At Night of Champions. I'm not okay with literally the biggest match of WWE this side of the century happening. You want to have the rematch in Australia? Go right ahead. You want to have Rock Hogan 2. That took place in Montreal at No Way Out the following year. That's great. That can happen. If you want at SummerSlam or at Money in the Bank in Toronto or in Bash at Berlin, Rock and Roman to have a rematch, great. Do the rematch there, okay? But we're not going to have
It's not
Rock
going to happen
versus
your way, though.
Roman for the head of the table, the one and only time, they'll advertise it as, the one and only match. Maybe it's Rock's retirement match. Maybe it's Roman's retirement match. Either way, the first time those two guys get in the ring in a one-on-one match, head-to-head, the head of the table, the longest championship reign in WWE
But
history.
I'm telling you, dude. I'm telling you right now. Regardless of, obviously we all want to see it at WrestleMania. I think everybody would agree on that. But I think at the end of the day, you made a point. They obviously had some issues trying to get the deal done in prior years, whether it was money, schedule, whatnot. The Rock, yeah, sure, he controls his schedule to a point, but he's still a very busy guy. So my thing is, it has to all come together. It has to be, the money's got to be right, and it's also got to be the timing's got to be right. Like, his schedule's got to be right. There's so many things that make it right. I don't know if April's going to be right. I don't know if it's going to happen that way. So for me, I think it's going to be Elimination Chamber. I think they're gonna face off. I think it's in a non-title match. I think it's going to be winner is head of the table. Roman wins the match. Roman goes to WrestleMania, and Roman faces Cody, where he drops the title to Cody Rhodes potentially. Now, my thing is, and I said this on our year event thing, is I still think Roman Reigns. I think he keeps it all the way through this year. But if I'm WWE booking this, I could see Cody Rhodes winning at WrestleMania. I will say this. I still think when we're doing this show next year, the first show of 2025, I'll say this. I'll say, yep, I think Roman finally drops the belt at WrestleMania 41.
So you think, and I don't care about the size of the stadium or the money that they're offering or anything like that, you think what would be the biggest main event in WWE, at least without a doubt, since Cena versus Rock? Because again, we're not talking about the best match. We're not talking about the Daniel Bryan story. No. We're not talking about all those feel-good moments of Kofi Kingston or any of that kind of stuff. We're just talking about the poster. We're talking about the billboard. We're talking about the marquee, right? There was no... If you remember, right, we had that 1 hour long special before, Cena versus Rock. We had the whole year build up. We had them coming to the ring with musical artists. We had just all of that. That event could have been called The event was pretty much WrestleMania once in a lifetime. The whole WrestleMania was around those two people and that match. And it took place, of course, in all places. Miami, the home of The Rock, right? So you're telling me the biggest WrestleMania main event in 12 years is going to happen at Elimination Chamber? I
mean, that's what I'm thinking.
And we're going to get Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns in a rematch. We're going to get Cody Rhodes, who isn't in. I mean, he's great and all, and he's the current Stone Cold Triple H. He's a current main eventer, okay? But he is not literally in the Mount Rushmores, as people call it. Like, if you go to the world and you say, what are your Mount Rushmores of wrestling? They're going to say Rock, Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan, Goldberg, Stone, those kind of people. That's what they're going to say. You're going to say, because of Cody Rhodes being the current Daniel Bryan, right? Because that's what this is. This is the Daniel Bryan. This is the Kofi Kingston. This is, we like WrestleMania to have these feel-good stories, and these people who necessarily were like indie darlings and took a while to get to the main events, get there and get to the top of the mountain. You're going to take that. You're going to take WrestleMania 30 and the Daniel Bryan thing, right? If you're WWE, over Rock versus Roman, literally on the side of your two tallest buildings in Philadelphia, like
it's not that simple. There. It's not that simple. Like I said, it all depends.
I'm just saying, if it's going to happen, if it can happen at Elimination Chamber, if Rock can fly 22 hours to Australia to wrestle, I think he can fly 1 or whatever 2 hours to Philadelia.
But you don't know what his schedule is. We don't know what his schedule is on WrestleMania weekend.
Whatever show we
don't know.
I know this much. Here's what I would do if I was in charge of WWE. I'd say, what is your schedule WrestleMania weekend? And he says, that weekend, you know what? I'm busy that weekend. Here's what I would do. One of two things. And this is how dead set I'm again about this. I'd move WrestleMania to when he's free, or I'd say, well, I guess we'll try it again.
It doesn't work that way.
I know. I get it. I would say WrestleMania 41 then. Let's try WrestleMania 41. I would literally die with this match never happening than to happen at Elimination Chamber. I get it. Elimination Chamber. Every PLE now is a big deal.
No, I would rather have the match at some. It doesn't, to me.
You'd rather have it at 6 o'clock in the morning in Australia. I get it. You'd rather have it a Saturday morning in the middle of February in Australia.
then nothing at all. I will take that match. I don't care if it's an elimination chamber,
Yes.
in Australia, or it's at Madison Square Garden in a random show. Like I just want it to happen. So well, obviously we'd all want to see it at WrestleMania, but there's so many things logistically speaking. Like you just mentioned, why don't we just move the date for Rock? Like that's not going to happen.
I'm just saying this is just such a big. If you remember 2 years ago, WrestleMania, right? Roman versus Brock Lesnar, the greatest WrestleMania main event of all time. They literally had to call it that. This is one that they wouldn't have to call the greatest WrestleMania main event of all time.
It's not that easy.
This one is just it. It's
not that easy. It's just not that easy because of The Rock and his schedule. This is not like Stone Cold Steve Austin, who he does different things here and there, TV shows, whatnot.
Okay,
The Rock is literally like the businessman.
Let's pretend his schedule is fine. All right, his schedule is fine, right? I don't think he'd be showing up on Monday Night Raw and teasing this stuff if he's only available one day in Australia in a month.
Well,
right?
dude,
I think he's obviously indicating that his schedule might. It's like when John Cena returned a couple months ago, right? John Cena didn't just return and say he was coming back if he didn't know ahead of time that he could come back.
But dude, so here's the thing. The Rock, like I read between the tea leaves that The Rock was coming to Raw this past week, and I called my shot on that because I'm like, oh, he's going to be at the Rose Bowl, so why wouldn't he, like the Rose Bowl's in Pasadena, and then San Diego's like what? I've never been to California, so anyone that's listening in California, I got my numbers wrong. It's a couple hours, right? It's like 2-3 hours, right? Give or take. I might be wrong on that, but it's not that far of, even if it's a quick flight for him, that's a hop and a skip.
I get it. And then SmackDown was in Colorado that one time when he was there for ESPN and stuff like that.
That's what I mean. It's logistics. To me, it's logistics.
Then logistics, he can't be in Australia. Like, that's the kind of thing. Listen,
what if he's filming something there? We don't know. Well, what if he's filming a movie in Australia that we don't know about?
What you're doing is you're literally making up these. Like, I'm not making up a scenario, right? I'm not saying.
But you were saying
why he can't be here.
But I'm saying let's move the WrestleMania for The Rock. Like that's not going to happen.
I get you there, but what I'm saying is the people that are on Twitter, the people that are on SiriusXM Radio, the people that are the pundits of the wrestling world, they're not arguing The Rock and Roman's going to happen at Elimination Chamber because they already know that that's his free day and that he's not free. They're arguing that as in that's what we want to happen. They're arguing that as
that's not what I want to happen.
Day for it to happen. What I'm saying is to you, if The Rock comes out right now and says, I'm free from now until the summer, me and Roman, when should it happen? What would you say?
Put him in WrestleMania, obviously. No, that's the thing.
Okay, then.
I don't want it. I don't want an Elimination Chamber. But if I get Elimination Chamber this year versus never happening, I'm taking the Elimination Chamber in Australia.
If it's Rock and Roman at Elimination Chamber, he damn well better be busy on WrestleMania. I don't want to see him at the WrestleMania card as a special guest referee because I'm just saying if he's available for this match has to happen at WrestleMania. Not this match isn't happening at WrestleMania because we don't want to hurt Cody's feelings. That's what I'm saying.
No, that's
if this
not
match doesn't
all.
happen at WrestleMania because we don't want to hurt, because that's what people are saying.
To me,
Cody and Roman should happen at WrestleMania because Cody deserves it. Literally, this match that's been in the rumor mill for that's literally, like I said, Freddie, I know you're not a big horror movie fan, but in 1993, the end of the Jason movie, and which was the first one owned by New Line Cinema, and Jason Goes to Hell, the movie ended in 1993 with Freddie pulling down Jason's mask underground into hell. Right now, they're owned by the same company, and all of a sudden now that indicates that, boom, they can make Freddie versus Jason because they're owned by the same property like we're used to now with, Endeavor owning UFC and WWE, right?
Yeah.
And for 10 years, people were talking about Freddie versus Jason. This, when they're going to make it, it's got to happen, right? If along the lines, like in 2001, 2002, the movie Saw comes out. Didn't exist before, but the movie Saw comes out, and it takes people by storm. That's the new favorite horror movie, or there's a new slasher, I Know What You Did Last Summer, or the guy from Scream, any of those movies that came out after that fact. All of a sudden you go, well, that guy from Scream, he's pretty popular. Let's make it the Scream guy versus Freddy in a no. Like this Rock versus Roman predates Cody coming back to WWE. Rock versus Roman was a scheduled main event of WrestleMania whenever.
But dude, it's at the end of the day. No, and I get that, and I agree with you. Like if we had to be able to pick a date and say, hey, Rock, are you definitely available on these dates?
So what do you do with Cody then? Then what do you tell all those people who are like, I want to see Cody and Roman at WrestleMania no matter what the Rock schedule is?
Then you put them in. Then you obviously at that point, if everything changes and the Rock is officially booked, which we don't know this at this time of recording, and nothing's come out. If they say, yeah, Rock and Roman is now the new main event, not you, Cody, what they're going to do is, and I would hope they would do this at least, they say, okay, Cody, you're going to win the Royal Rumble, and then you're going to face Seth Rollins. Now that's going to piss off CM Punk, obviously. So then you got to figure out a way to make CM Punk. It's a trickle down effect because The Rock has thrown a wrench in the plans, because I think the plans before, obviously CM Punk's been back recently. We understand that, but I think the recent plans up until The Rock's making his return this past week, it was going to be Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, night 2, and then night 1, Seth Rollins, CM Punk. That's what it was as soon as Survivor Series went off the air that night. I think everybody that was following along, I think that's what the plans were. I think that was kind of an obvious thing. But now with The Rock being involved, if he says he can do WrestleMania, then yeah, I get it. Then you obviously move Cody along. But my thing is, I think what's going to happen is, I do think it's going to be Elimination Chamber, as much as you're not going to like that. But I think it happens in Elimination Chamber. I think that's real quick. I think The Rock is already telling him, like, him and his people are talking to WWE and saying, okay, I can do the Australia gig. I can't do WrestleMania. You either get me then or you get me not at all. And then that's what you do. And I'm just saying, this is all hypotheticals, obviously.
The Rock did say he likes Philly cheesesteaks. He did say that pretty recently. I will say that.
That's fine. That's great. Like, I like pizza. I live in New York. It doesn't matter. To me, here's the thing. The Rock to me is going to do whatever his schedule tells him he can do. And he's a busy guy. He films. We all know that. So for me, I wouldn't be surprised if he says, hey guys, I have a film coming up. I'm going to be in Australia. Let's make it work. And then, I can't. But I'm also going to be filming another movie or another TV show or whatever. I can't do WrestleMania, but I can do Elimination Chamber. They're going to take whatever he can give them, and they're going to do it. That's my thought about it. WrestleMania? Yes, obviously. I think everybody.
I'll end our talk to anybody out there who is on the Cody versus Roman train instead of this happening, and wants a WrestleMania rematch, right? Between two WWE wrestlers instead of a WWE wrestler and a megastar, right? For those people who are out there, just remember that WrestleMania itself was founded on the ideas of the Rocks of the world in your main event matches.
Well, yeah, they
to
had
be
the Mr.
part
T's,
of your shows.
They had the Cyndi Laupers, they had all the big names. Yeah, I get it.
So the idea of Cody and Roman being the better feel-good story, listen, that's great in a year where there's not much else going on, okay? And that's great for when this isn't happening. First off, it's a rematch of all things, right? If probably Cody should have won last year, right? If your idea of the WrestleMania main event, WrestleMania 40, WrestleMania main event is for Cody and Roman to have a rematch because he lost a match in which you fans thought he was clearly going to win last year, right? And they're just essentially building it up for another year for really no reason why he had to earn it for that additional year other than just a made up, well, he didn't earn it yet kind of nonsense, right? If that is your thing, that you think that takes precedent over a match in which is going to not just get the eyeballs of wrestling fans, but get the eyeballs of, and that's why The Rock is perfect, because he is both, he's not just some celebrity, he's not just Snooki, he is both a world famous wrestler and a world famous actor. That is what he is, literally everything WWE wants to be. They want to be wrestling to wrestling fans and celebrity to non-wrestling fans. He is literally at the word WrestleMania. The pay-per-view itself was invented.
I agree.
This match.
I agree with you. I do. I agree with you. And before we put a bow on this, I just want to say this. What a time to be a wrestling fan when you and I can spend as much time as we have debating whether or not The Rock, do we need The Rock at WrestleMania and this and that. That just tells you the state of wrestling right now. And I cannot be happier. And I know you teased it a little while ago, but there's some other good stuff coming through the business right now. So I just wanted to put the icing, the cherry on the top. We've talked about this for a good amount of time. I've enjoyed this. And that just tells you how good things are in wrestling. And that's why we get to do this every single week. And we're in year 8 together, so this is fantastic.